Hello, I'm Claire Holleran and I'm a Senior Lecturer in Classics and Ancient History here at the University of Exeter. And my research focuses on Roman social and economic history. What I'm really interested in are the everyday experiences of living in the Roman world. So not so much what the soldiers or the military leaders are up to, but really what would it be like for us? So for the ordinary, if you will, men, women and children of the Roman world. What was their lived experience? So I've worked on shops and shopping in the Roman world. I've looked at work and labour. And my current project is on human mobility, so migration in Roman Iberia. So that is Spain and Portugal. And I'm lucky enough at the moment to be funded by the Leverhulme Trust to do this. And we talk about migration a lot these days, but migration is nothing new. Human mobility really is a normal and structural part of human society. And what I want to talk to you about today is migration from the Roman period, so 2,000 years ago in Roman Iberia. And we can see that it's commonplace. So I'm tracing movement on the basis of inscriptions. And we have thousands and thousands of inscriptions from Roman Iberia. Principally, I'm looking at funeral inscriptions. So where an individual dies and is commemorated in one place, but their inscription, their epitaph, tells us that they're from somewhere else. So, for example, this man here, Marcus Iulius Avitus. He tells us he's from Elisippo, so Elisiponensis of Elisippo. 30 years old, hic situs est, here he lies. So his funerary monument, his tombstone, was found in a place called Pax Iulia. He's from Elisippo, which is now Lisbon. So he's moved around 135 kilometres. So we know that at some point he made that journey. There are limitations. What we don't know is if he meant to stay at Pax Iulia. I mean, he's only 30, so he's fairly young. He died there. Was it actually just a stop on his journey? Did he go straight from Elisippo to Pax Iulia? We don't know the details. So there are limitations here. And I often think of my own journey. So I live in Exeter now, but I didn't grow up in Exeter. I grew up in Preston in Lancashire. But let's say I were to drop dead on the way home from here today, which I hope doesn't happen. But let's say I did and someone chose to commemorate me here in Exeter, but to say that I was from Preston. So Claire Holleran, Prestonensis, I guess it would be, hic sita est. So you'd know my start point and you'd know my end point, but you wouldn't necessarily know what happened in between. So, I also lived in Manchester for a time, I lived in London, I studied in Rome for a while, I went back to Manchester and then came to Exeter. So you can't necessarily get the full picture, but you do get the start and the end point. So you get a sense of human mobility and human journeys here. So I have around 550 examples in my database. And what I'm working on right now is the sort of stories behind those inscriptions. So it's traditionally thought that the kind of typical migrant profile historically is a young single adult male. And I do have plenty of examples of those. I mean, Marcus Iulius is just one. But actually what emerges from my database is a much broader picture, including both female migration and family migration. And that's what these two examples here point to. So these are both found at the mines at Rio Tinto. So presumably people moved there for work. I mean, there's nothing else around there apart from the mines. But, there's work not just in the mines themselves, but also in the sort of service industry that grows up there to serve the workers, the contractors, the soldiers who were there to guard the mines. So there's lots of economic opportunities there, in retail, in bars and inns, in the bathhouses, sex workers, all of those kind of things. So presumably people here are moving for economic reasons. So we have the first example there is Licinia Materna. And she tells us that she's the daughter of Paternus. So we know from that she's freeborn. And she's from a place called Nova Augusta. and she's 30 years old. Here she lies, hic sit est, sit tibi terra levis, may the earth rest lightly upon you. So she's from a place called Nova Augusta, which is about 550 kilometres away from the place she dies at Rio Tinto. What's interesting about this inscription is that there's no named commemorator here. So that's not, unusual. We do have other examples of that, but, she's got no named male relative here. So potentially there is always the possibility that we're looking at a single female migrant here. So again, a broader picture of migration than we might typically expect. And this example here indicates family migration. So this is Lucius Helvius Lupus from a place called Emerita, which is about 140 kilometres away from Rio Tinto. And he's only 8 months old when he dies, and child mortality was very high in the Roman world, so unfortunately this wouldn't have been uncommon. So he's 8 months old, here he lies. His mother Helvia Secundula and his father Probus had this made. So we must assume here that this family moved together from Emerita to Rio Tinto. So even with a small baby, people are making journeys. What's also noteworthy about this one is Lucius's name. So the Helvius part he takes from his mother, and that's not a very Roman practice at all. So that must indicate the continuation of local naming practices even into the Roman period. So we have here female migration, we have family migration, and in my current project I've collected all the examples that I can find from that region, made a database, translated them all as I have here. And what I think is the kind of most exciting part is that I've mapped them all as well, with the help of my wonderful colleagues in digital humanities. So what I'm working on is this interactive map of population movement in Roman Iberia. So it's still in development, so it will look roughly like this. So the big orange circles represent centres of emigration, so more people move from there than move to them. And the green ones represent centres of immigration, so places more people move to than move from. And when this is ready, you'll be able to filter it by various categories. So sex, so you can look at just male migrants or just female migrants. Age at death, so you could look for just children if you wanted. Legal status, so you could look just for enslaved people. You could look for the formerly enslaved, so the manumitted, or you could look just for the freeborn. Also social status and profession. So mainly soldiers come under profession, but there are others. So we've got some architects in there, we've got some hairdressers, and so on. So the idea behind this really is to visualise the data in a new way, to see what new patterns emerge when we map these migrants. So this is Rio Tinto. So those examples that we were just looking at. This here is Emerita. So that line there represents the journey of Lucius Helvius Lupus. So that baby and his family who did that journey. This here is Nova Augusta. So this represents the journey of Licinia Materna. And we also have two other migrants from what is Elisipo, or was Elisipo, to Rio Tinto as well. So if we put these on a map, we can look at different journeys, see if we get patterns, see if we get clusters of migrants, see if we can identify chain migration and all those sorts of things. So this will be an open access resource, which should go live on our website later this year. So I hope that some of you will be able to have a look at this and have a little play around with those filters and see what stories you can pull out of those individual and collective migrant journeys. So thank you for watching, and I hope that you're able to have as much fun with this as I have been able to.